At the height of our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, I was a student in Diana Eck's class on world religions at Harvard. One day in October, Dr. Eck invited a panel of Buddhist scholars to talk with us. Seated directly in front of me was the Venerable Lama Migmar, a luminous spirit wearing the traditional red robe of Tibetan Buddhism. Lama Migmar softly and patiently answered our questions about Buddhism's views on many issues, though most of the questions centered around the ethical matters that were then facing our nation in these wars, in the interplay of capitalism with militarism, and the cultural battles between Islam and Christianity. After each reply, Lama Migmar would smile, almost as if he had just told a joke. The incongruity of constantly smiling was so unnerving that one student finally asked what it was in this conversation that seemed to delight him so much. And he explained that the Buddhist monk smiles as a gift to the world, even though the topic of conversation was very painful to everyone. His choice was to offer joyful peace and serenity to the world as a spiritual discipline, as a practice, as a habit, to always smile. Spirituality should not be a denial of reality, but it is oftentimes defiance of reality. Maybe it's always in defiance of reality. That is, we refuse to allow our emotions, our reactions, our thinking, and our acting to be based on what happens to us or what is happening around us. We can see and know and understand, we can study, we can get at the hard facts, but we must not be defeated by what we see, what we know, and what we understand. Too often, religious people seem to believe that our faith is to be expressed in a kind of passive acquiescence. And that, to use technical theological language, I know that these terms are sometimes difficult for you, but that is complete baloney. The notion that being a religious person means that you are always nice and always passive and always peaceful, that is garbage. Lama Migmar said that to grow in the Buddhist way, and he said that they spend time not just in meditation and silence, but in learning a kind of engaged dialogue in which they debate important issues, but learn how to do it in a respectful and meaningful way. But he said to progress in the faith means to move from the intellect into faith, turning blind faith into wisdom faith. You get that difference? That so much of creedal religion is a matter of assassinating your brains and making yourself believe things that are completely implausible. But to move from intellect to faith so that you're moving from blind faith to wisdom faith. I'll be talking more about that next week and some in the weeks to come as we talk more about evidence-based approaches to faith. But to engage the intellect in the process of faith rather than denying it or ignoring it. And so much of what has passed for the practice of Christianity has required you to leave your brain at the front door of the church, to set aside reason, rational thought, analysis, to leave that aside in order to engage in faith. But real faith, the real spirituality, requires that you start with the intellect to grow towards a wisdom faith. In our reading from the 32nd chapter of Jeremiah this morning, and I have to say, when I saw what the reading was, and it was Jacob's time to be the liturgist today, I said, Jacob, I'll read that text for you if you want me to. He says, no, I can handle it. I thought, well, okay. What are you now, 16, 17 years old? And how many of you have refused to read anything that had any Hebrew names in it? So thank you. Thank you, Jacob, for having that courage to take that on. We look in on this chapter, though, and we see it was sort of an odd reading, right? That Jeremiah's buying a field and, put the deeds in an earthenware jar and all that sort of stuff. But he had been warning the nation that they were soon going to be overrun by the armies of Babylon. And, of course, the state preachers had all been saying, we don't lose wars, we always win, we're God's favorite nation, we're God's chosen people, everything's going to turn out fine. Jeremiah had been saying, actually, no, you're about to get your butts handed to you on a platter. And everybody was mad at Jeremiah for doing that. And then just as the armies are at the city walls, just as it's about to fall apart, Jeremiah decides to make an investment in real estate. And they're going to tear down the walls, they're going to burn down the houses, they're going to throw salt in the fields, they're going to cut down the olive trees, they're going to make the land entirely uninhabitable, and that's when he decides that he's going to go out and buy some land. Just when it was becoming worthless. Jeremiah was choosing as the whole world was falling apart. He was choosing to give his country a smile and say, it is as bad as it's ever going to be, but we still have a future. This is not going to be the last word. There's going to be a future. We have reason to hope. You take any one issue from our time. Just take, for example, gun violence. We just had another mass killing at the Naval Yard in Washington, D.C., the same week as a former child star simulated sex acts while dancing and singing on an award show. Which event would you guess received the most media attention? Yeah. The number of Google searches. One of the 12 largest mass murders in the United States, and Miley Cyrus's twerking got more attention. Now, of the 12 largest mass murders in the history of the United States, the first one was in the 1940s. A returning World War II soldier had bought a Luger as a war memento, and he just walked through the neighborhood and shot a bunch of people one day. That's the first. But of the 12 largest, all have taken place since the mid-1940s, but half of them have taken place in the last 5 years, because the rate at which these things are happening has escalated, and it's become so frequent that we are becoming desensitized. So that a mass murder like that can happen, and immediately can you believe what Miley Cyrus did? After the Sandy Hook massacre, when 6 adults and 20 children were killed in a normally quiet neighborhood, it seemed like the nation was finally ready to do something, finally ready to take action. But played with political sophistication that never seems to fail, the NRA timed their responses and pulled out their puppet politicians to just the right degree to keep anything from being done, with the exception of in Arizona. In Arizona, they passed some changes requiring background checks, but the NRA responded to that by coming in with millions of dollars, and they had successful recall elections, so that even the politicians, and 90% of Americans want background checks. 90% of Americans. So these politicians forwarded that in Arizona, where one of the recent tragic, or two of the recent tragic events has taken place, and they lost recall election challenges. Nothing, it appears, can keep the NRA from making certain that terrorists, murderers, the insane, and illegal gun traffickers can buy almost any weapon at any time. They come back to that old crazy line that guns don't kill, people kill. Well, okay then, if 90% of the people in America want extensive background checks on the people who want to buy guns, no background check on the gun, not guns that kill, it's people that kill. So let's play their silly game. Do background checks on people. Do background checks on people. Don't let people who have shot out the tires of a construction worker or fired through their apartment floor at a noisy neighbor with a gun, don't let them buy another gun. And don't let people who hear voices, who suffer mind control that comes at them through their microwave oven, don't let them buy guns. Though seriously, when someone says that they want to buy a military style assault rifle, and ammunition belts or drums with the capacity for firing so many bullets that you can kill a dozen people in a minute, what more diagnostic criteria do you really need than the fact that they want to own that gun? What do they have to serve red wine with fish? What do they have to do for us to realize that they're crazy? From the time that Ed Sullivan had to edit out Elvis Presley's hip gyrations to the present moment, performers who want to build their audience pretend to be having sex while they sing. It isn't news, it isn't interesting, and if Hannah Montana was a role model for your kids, then all I can say is that you should be more engaged parents because Disney never told you that they were going to raise your kids for you. Sure, Miley Cyrus should keep trying to get her tongue back inside her mouth more often, but we should not be seduced into the media attempts at always diverting our attention away from what is important to making us waste our emotional energy and our potential for changing the world on things that ultimately do not matter. Our government lied to us about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and they lied when they tried to connect Saddam Hussein to 9/11. We have fought an illegal, bloody, and expensive war on false pretenses in which our national soul has been corrupted through torture and through the murder of civilians. And yet, we will put the soldier who exposes this information about war crimes in prison for 35 years and do nothing to the people who committed the war crimes. Not under Bush and not under Obama. No difference in the treatment of war criminals. Income inequality has reached the tipping point, leaving the elderly unable to retire and keeping wages for young people so that they abandon the hope of ever owning a home or even being able to afford to have a child. It is not too much of a stretch to say that if you are not angry, that you are not paying attention. And yet, if you can forgive me for proof texting, James chapter 1, verse 20 reminds us, "For your anger does not produce the righteousness of God." Being informed can make you angry, it can make you cynical, but I can assure you that anger and cynicism can paralyze your heart. I'm not equating the two, but you can watch either conservative Fox TV or liberal MSNBC, and from either the left or the right, you can come away so angry that you become indifferent, you become detached, and even in your language, you make it obvious that what this information has done to you is it has turned you into a colossal jerk. Your spiritual walk requires that you be informed, but be informed in a way that moves from intellect to wisdom. And to do that, you sometimes simply have to choose to smile in the face of insurmountable odds. There's an Islamic tale that one night in the desert, Muhammad was in prayer beseeching God to reveal all of God's names. The Muslims believe that God has 100 names. And one by one, Allah revealed the names of God to Muhammad. And Muhammad memorized 99 of them, but the last name Allah refused to reveal to Muhammad. You've seen Muslims with prayer beads. The very long ones have 99 beads, and they go through and say the names of God. Most Muslim prayer beads are 33. So you say, you repeat the names, you go through the prayer beads 3 times. Allah, God. Ar-Rahma, the beneficent. Ar-Rahim, the merciful. And for each bead, they recite the names of God. Allah refused to tell Muhammad after a night of begging what that 100th name. So finally God said, I will whisper it in the ear of your camel. And that, we are told, is why camels have that look on their faces. That smug look where they look down on us because they know something we can never, ever know. The list of the 99 names of God are beautiful and powerful, and even though I have never gotten a camel to talk to me, I have an idea about the name that is missing. Of all the beautiful and wonderful names given to Allah in the Quran, the one that I find that is missing is the word hope. That was what Jeremiah was trying to give to his community when their world was utterly falling apart. He wanted them to see hope in his actions. I believe that there is hope in Lama Migmar's smile in the face of an insane war. Unlike many of my peers in the ministry, I do not believe that faith is a matter of believing in things that defy reason, like heaven and hell and angels and demons and supernatural theistic gods and Trinitarian unity. I believe that faith is essentially courageous joy. Faith is about having courage. Faith is about having defiance, not denial of reality, but defying the crushing power of reality. We choose to smile in the face of our government's lies, our lethal economic system, and the absurd religion and entertainment industry that strives to keep our peers either distracted or defeated. Hope in spite of dire circumstances. Hope that leads us from the intellectual awareness and an informed worldview towards wisdom faith. And 100% of camels will refuse to tell you that I am wrong.
You've been watching a progressive Christian video from the Community Christian Church of Springfield, Missouri. We encourage our viewers to donate to our efforts in feeding the homeless and hungry of our community. Write to us at reverenddray@aol.com for more information.